It's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's check in on actor and simpleton Mark Ruffalo, who is dazed and confused. He's not coping in Trump's America.
I don't understand what's happening right now. My industry doesn't understand what's happening right now. But what they do understand is our freedom of speech is being attacked.
Another absolute hypocrite who suddenly cares about free speech. They were cheering on their ideological opponents being silenced, being cancelled and deplatformed. Give me a break. Now, let's go to Lefty Losing It regular Rosie O'Donnell, who, despite fleeing to Ireland to escape Trump's America, does nothing but talk and think and obsess about Donald Trump. Even her therapist is wondering why she's so obsessed.
What he's done yet hasn't even hit us yet. Right. And if he's not stopped now, we have lost our country. And I don't know, Nicole, how it is that some people cannot see it. My therapist said, "Why are you so upset?" And I said to her, "Why are you not?"
Yeah. Yeah, I have that conversation too, because the gaslighting that I think you're alluding to, if you're a thoughtful, informed person, you do stop and say, well, maybe it is me.
Yes, even her therapist thinks she needs to find some perspective, but not MSNBC anchor Nicole Wallace, who is matching Rosie in the loopy stakes. The only gaslighting happening there, Nicole, is you convincing yourself that you're thoughtful and informed. But at least when Nicole and Rosie are sharing their paranoid delusions, they're not producing content like this, whatever this is.
Trying to leak our information. Is you a prophet or is you for profit? Is you for yourself or for the nation?
You know, the left suffer from the delusion that if they repeat a lie often enough and they really, really want it to be true, then it is. We've heard them repeat the same dangerous lies about Donald Trump for years, from the Russian collusion hoax to the Fine People hoax. Now there is another lie being put forward by failed Vice President and failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris. She keeps saying this despite it being verifiably false.
And it ended up being the closest presidential election in the 21st century.
The closest presidential election in the 21st century? An out-and-out lie, Kamala. She lost by a huge margin. She not only lost the Electoral College by a huge margin, she lost every swing state. She also lost the popular vote. Trump was the first Republican to win the popular vote in 20 years. But did Rachel Maddow correct that obvious lie? Well, of course not. And Kamala was off to The View to repeat that same lie.
It is the closest presidential race in the 21st century in terms of the outcome.
Wow.
The closest.
Yes, the idiot View crowd are going to clap along like trained seals to anything, but there were 6 highly paid View co-hosts on the desk with Kamala. Not one of them corrected that outrageous lie. And emboldened by her bold-faced lies being accepted as gospel, Kamala repeated that line at her old college. Here she is at Howard University.
Closest election for President of the United States in the 21st century.
Wow, I know that's right. And a Howard grad did that here.
And a Howard grad did that.
Why is it that Kamala looks like she arrived straight from happy hour to that event? No academics there, no students corrected that lie. So let's get a hot take on Kamala from her successor, JD Vance.
Because the more people know about Kamala Harris, the more they realize there's no substance there. I mean, agree or disagree with Barack Obama or Bill Clinton, they actually had substance. They could actually articulate a viewpoint. I listened to Kamala Harris for 90 seconds, and I actually feel like I've gotten dumber in the process, and I have no idea what she actually believes.
Now to the deplorable Ilhan Omar, who was doubling down on her abuse against Charlie Kirk. Last week, she had plenty to say, including this on CNN.
That should be in the dustbin of history, and we should hopefully move on and forget the hate that he spewed every single day.
Asked to apologise for those comments and other similarly unhinged and ugly commentary, this is what the anti-American Democrat Congresswoman had to say. This time, she's with the awful Don Lemon.
I have nothing to apologize for. It is a tragedy that Charlie Kirk was killed in that way. I feel for his widow and his children. They will have to live with that for the rest of their lives. But there is no legacy to honor. It was a legacy filled with bigotry, hatred, and white supremacy. And as a black woman and as a Muslim in this country, I refuse. These crazy people can do whatever they want to do, but I am not going to be bullied into complacency, into dishonoring who I am and what I stand for.
Yes, she's not going to be bullied into decency or honesty. She's going to remain a race-baiting radical doing harm to the country that gave her sanctuary. Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, Ilhan Omar is going to find out the hard way that Charlie Kirk's legacy is far greater, far more consequential than anything she or her squad members are going to be achieving.
I think she already knows that, Rita, on some level, but she is unashamed, unabashed, telling us exactly who she is in some strange upside down way. You almost have to admire it because she's just tripling down, quadrupling down in that belief. I think, cynically, in the narrow world of just her retaining her seat, as long as she continues to do that and the demographics where she lives are favorable to that, and once you become an incumbent, it does get harder and harder to be unseated, though it certainly is happening more and more. Unless and until that happens, I would say that she doesn't care, and she's going to continue to be true to her belief system with no shame whatsoever. The only good news I would offer is that, broadly speaking, she and her kind, whether it's Jimmy Kimmel, whether it's everyone else, they are losing right now. They're losing electorally, they're losing in the court, they're losing culturally, and that is something, but they haven't lost. And while they're losing, but they haven't lost, this is actually a dangerous time, and you're going to see much more, I think, vicious vitriol and even violence coming out, unfortunately, and that's why the right really has to fight harder against people like that.
Absolutely. You mentioned Jimmy Kimmel. We've had the likes of him straight out lie about the politics of Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin. Now we have John Carl on ABC claiming the murder wasn't even political.
Been senselessly celebrated by some, a small minority who didn't like what Kirk stood for and thought it was somehow therefore justified. Celebrating or excusing violence is abhorrent. The murder of Charlie Kirk was not a political act. It was a gruesome crime.
Yes, it was a gruesome crime, but it was also clearly political, Kosha. The motivation for the murder is not really in dispute at this point. We have the words of the alleged assassin. Why do we still have elements of the media determined to muddy the waters here?
I think we know why, that they are losing, as we just said, and on every dimension. And this is the last thing that they have to hang on to, which is, as you said in your earlier segment, keep lying enough times and repeat the lie enough times. And some portion of the country and the world, unfortunately, will believe it, because we are in information warfare along with other types of warfare. And that's why they do it. But I do go back to that silver lining, that they are losing. Ratings are down. Everything that Charlie Kirk said, all of his videos, the memorial service, all of that have hundreds of millions and even aggregated up to 1 billion views, way more than Jonathan Karl will ever see, or the entire network. And so that's the good news, that you're in this information warfare, and they are not winning. But I think they're going to go down and keep repeating these types of comments till the bitter end.
And you look at Turning Point USA, the demand they've had for new chapters is astonishing. If they can follow through with that and establish those chapters throughout the country, the impact is so much more profound than perhaps even Charlie ever dreamed of. Now, Kosha, the federal government may be shut down. This happens when Congress can neither pass all 12 appropriation bills needed to fund the government, nor pass a continuing resolution. And the countdown is on. Let's hear from Vice President J.D. Vance.
First of all, we have to keep essential services functioning as well as possible if the Democrats shut down the government, and Russ has been tasked with making sure that's possible. Now, you asked about negotiations. One of the things I admired about the president, but frankly the entire team's approach during the conversation we just had with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries was, they have some crazy ideas. Giving taxpayer money to illegal aliens for health care, that's a crazy idea. Funding transgender surgeries in Peru, that's a crazy idea. But they had some ideas that I actually thought were reasonable, and they had some ideas that the president thought was reasonable. What's not reasonable is to hold those ideas as leverage and to shut down the government unless we give you everything that you want.
Funding transgender surgeries in Peru and giving free healthcare to illegal immigrants. Kosha, do you think they'll come to a deal before the Wednesday deadline?
Hard to say. I think possibly this time they will, or if it goes into shutdown, it'll be a very short shutdown. And I think the reason why, one big difference this time compared to last time, which was in Trump's first term, 2018, 2019, it was the longest shutdown, 35 days, the longest in history. It came down to the border wall. And ultimately that shutdown was only averted when Trump caved and said he will not keep fighting for, I think it was less than $6 billion for the border wall, and never got that money. This time, the One Big Beautiful Bill was passed. And what that has done is it's completely legislated and funded Trump's agenda. The wall, enough money for mass deportations, making his tax cuts permanent, and cutting some of those aids for Medicare and SNAP and food stamps and those programs. So actually the leverage is totally different this time. The Republicans have so much more leverage because their key agenda items cannot be held hostage the way it was last time. And because of that, I think they're going to play more hardball, and the Democrats ultimately will see that, or they already see that. And I think they probably are the ones who are going to capitulate, but time will tell.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Democrats think there's some sort of electoral advantage in shutting down the government and prolonging this as long as they can, or whether it's actually going to hurt them more than it hurts the Trump administration. Now, earlier today, the president reshared this funny post featuring Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. I'm telling you, I'm liking AI more and more if it can produce comedy like this.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bull. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us.
Kosha, the fact that the president is sharing content like this leads me to believe he's not terribly worried about this so-called crisis. But why is this even happening? If the Republicans have both houses, why are they not getting their legislation through?
The main issue, the wedge here, is in the Senate. To avoid a filibuster, or bring an end to a filibuster and invoke cloture, they need 60 votes, and they don't have that much of a majority. So that means they need 7 or 8 Democrats or independents that are aligned with Democrats to come over to this side. And that's, I'm sure, the horse trading and jockeying that's happening behind the scenes. But I think, to your point, that the calculation the Democrats are making, because they have nothing right now. They have neither chamber, they don't have the Supreme Court, they don't have the White House. This is one thing they have that they can try to throw a monkey wrench into this. And they would only do that if they think it helps them electorally. And maybe they're miscalculating. I hope that they are, because videos like this one only shows that they're sort of like running a clown show. And I don't think it's going to land well with the American public, but we shall see.
No, but I'm sure the Democrats will get a very cushy run from the media. They will paint this as just another symptom of the Trump administration being in crisis. They did that throughout the first term. This constant rolling crisis that it just doesn't have the impact it once had, Kosha. The American electorate is not buying what the media is selling them. Now, I want to ask you about this major victory for President Trump earlier today. He took on social media platforms, he's taken on media companies and even the might of Google, and he's had another win here. Google subsidiary YouTube has paid out more than $24 million to settle a lawsuit that President Trump brought against the platform for suspending his channel after the January 6th riot. This is a major victory. There's no other way to look at this, Kosha.
For sure. And now he is approaching $90 million in such settlements. 25 million from YouTube right now, as you say, 25 from Facebook/Meta, 15 million from ABC because George Stephanopoulos slandered him, really. That's what the settlement was on, when it was misstating the claims from that E. Jean Carroll case. And then CBS, the balance of that. So that's 90 million. About 2/3 of it is going to his presidential library and the ballroom that's going to be constructed in the White House, which is going to anger, I think, the left, because both those things are permanent things that'll have Trump's name on it forevermore in some way. And then the 1/3 is going into his pocket. So it is a win for sure. It's part of his comeback, the greatest comeback story of all time that's continuing. These are all civil lawsuits that he's made in his personal capacity, so they're not, official lawsuits by the U.S. government. Those types of things are also pending. But yeah, on it goes. He's got a few more in the pike: the Wall Street Journal, Associated Press, the Pulitzer Prize Committee. He's suing them as well, giving Pulitzer Prizes to all those people for the Russiagate reporting, and on it goes. So those are going to be funny ones that I think will continue to come out in his favor.
I tell you, accountability is coming for everybody. And when it comes to Google and particularly YouTube, they've admitted that the Biden administration pressured them to deplatform particular individuals, to get rid of content that the Biden White House did not want shared. I mean, this is a real issue. We've had so many people having meltdowns about Jimmy Kimmel being off air for a couple of days. This is a real free speech issue, and I don't think it's got this sort of coverage it deserves. There were so many ordinary people, Kosha, impacted.
Absolutely. That is really the point. So it's fun and funny to see that accountability and having them to pay up, even though they're just settlements without apologies. But the real crux, the legal crux of it is what you say. And if we think about what happened in the wake of January 6th, they completely deplatformed the sitting U.S. president, because he still was the president until January 21st, from all of those platforms and then some, plus individual people. They're still being reinstated till this day. Not all of them have been reinstated. There's all sorts of people, like Dr. Naomi Wolf is part of this lawsuit today from YouTube. She's getting, I think, 2 million or so out of that because of COVID vaccine-related information that she was sharing. They suspended her. And there's so many examples about that. So we've only scratched the surface. The ultimate remedy for this, many do believe, is antitrust, which is picking up momentum, that they're just too big, and the economic power of these 5 or 6 companies is so much that it's so hard to do anything around them. If that happens, I think only then will you see a structural change. Otherwise, it feels like a little bit of ankle biting. You get some wins here and there, but if the other side comes into power, which they will at some point, I would expect to see these kinds of tactics, unfortunately, continue in the future.
And Kosha, when it comes to Google, you can't overstate their power and influence. This is how people find out information in the modern age. They've got close to monopoly power, and that can be a dangerous thing, can't it?
Yeah, it really is scary where they have the economic power, but as you say, unlike an ExxonMobil or some other company like that that's also economically very powerful, their market cap, they deal in information flow and opinion shaping. And it's only going to get even more amplified with AI. And they and all of these tech companies are going into that, where now that's further going to control how people think and the masses think. So this is a big deal. Antitrust, again, I think, is the only remedy. And the issue is that governments in these cases are very, very slow relative to how quickly those companies can grow and roll up the whole world and all the information in it. And that imbalance is very tough to combat, but it is picking up steam. And if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen in the Trump administration, some sort of antitrust case brought by the DOJ, but we shall see.
Kosha Gator, thank you so much for your time.